All right, it's time to do dimensional analysis. This is a very important tool for chemistry, physics, or just mathematics in general. Every teacher has her or his method of doing this. And I learned it from Professor Don Woods, and I find that the way that he taught me works every time, and it's really simple to do. So basically with dimensional analysis, you're converting between units. So if you have, if you're going 25 miles an hour in your car and you want to know how many meters per second you're traveling, you'd use dimensional analysis to find out. Now, before we begin with an example, there's something that we got to consider. That's the difference between exact measurements and measured measurements, or exact ratios and measured ratios. So, for instance, we have miles and feet. Now, 5,280 feet is defined to be 1 mile. That's exact. That's like saying there are 5 fingers on one hand. So if I said there are 20, or let's say 4 hands in the room, how many fingers are there? Well, provided that everybody has all 5 fingers, there would be 20 fingers in the room. You don't have to worry about it. That's not measured. But if I put, let's say I have some sugar, I put it in a cup and then weigh it, and it says that I have 2.055 grams of sugar. Well, that's measured. That's a measured amount. And it's only exact, or it's not exact, it's only accurate to as well as we've measured it. It might be, 2.544022 grams or whatever. And just like with the significant figures thing before, that's what limits it. But when you have exact measurements like this, that's like, if you have 2.54 centimeters, that is 1 inch. That is defined to be 1 inch. So that's just like saying, 5 fingers on a hand. If it's exact, then we don't need to worry about significant figures. So we'll get into that more later on. So let's take this example here. How many meters are in 1 mile? So when I do dimensional analysis, the first thing I do is figure out what do I have and what do I want to convert to. So in this one, how many meters in 1 mile? Well, we're trying to find out meters, and we know 1 mile. So I'm going to take what we know and put it on the very left side. That's 1 mile. So I'm going to say 1.0 miles, and we'll get into why in a minute. And so I have miles, and I want to go to meters. Okay, meters. Now you might be saying, well, Justin, why bother with all of this stuff? Because I could just look in my book here, and it says 1 mile is 1.609 kilometers. Let's write that down. 1 mile is 1.609 kilometers. Okay. Well, that is not an exact measurement. Like, these are exact. Just like having 5 fingers in a hand, this is exact, but this is not. And unless something says explicitly in the chart that you're looking at that it's exact, then don't think of it as exact, because then your answer won't come out right. So let's go ahead and let's continue on with this. So with dimensional analysis, you're using division and multiplication in a way that makes things cancel out. So, like, for instance, if I have 5 divided by 5, what does that equal? Well, it equals 1. So it doesn't just work with numbers, it works with anything. If you have miles divided by miles, that equals 1. If you have students divided by students, or rooms divided by rooms, then that equals 1. So we're going to take advantage of that and deliberately cancel things out using division. So we're starting off with miles, and we want to get to meters. So the first thing we do is get rid of miles. How do we do that? We divide by it. So I'm going to multiply by a ratio, and I'm going to put miles on the bottom without even thinking about it. I'm just going to, boom, put miles on the bottom because it's going to cancel out. And so now I think, okay, I want to get to meters. What ratio is going to help me get there? Okay, well I have miles, and let's just look at our information that we're given. Well, I have miles to feet, and that's pretty much all I know. So I'm going to go ahead and run with that. So I have miles, so this says 1 mile in every 5280 feet. Okay, so now we're in feet, and we want to get to meters. Okay, well I can't, up here I don't really have feet to meters, so I'm going to have to be a little creative here and say, okay, I'm in feet, and I know centimeters will get me pretty close to meters, and inches gets me to centimeters, so I could go from feet to inches. So again, I want to take what I don't want and put it on the bottom, feet, and put what I do want on the top. That's going to get me closer, right? So it's 12 inches in 1 foot, right? Be sure you don't put 12 feet in 1 inch. Just think about it. And I make that mistake all the time. Everybody does. Just double check yourself and say, hold up, 1 foot, 12 inches in 1 foot. Okay, I'm good. Okay, and now we could use this ratio, right? I want to get inches, get rid of it, inches, and we have 1 inch in every 2.54 centimeters. Now I'm really close to meters, right? Again, I could put centimeters on the bottom, centimeters go on the bottom, and I could go directly to meters. Because think about a meter stick. How many centimeters are in 1 meter stick? 1 meter stick has 100 centimeters in it. And now this is where a lot of people do this part differently. And I think that the way I do it is better than any other way that I've seen. Because in other ways, you'll multiply this by this by this by this by this, and then multiply all this stuff, and then divide the two. And when you do that, you're bound to either write something down wrong or hit the wrong key on the calculator. With the way that I do it, it eliminates a lot of the error that could come about, especially if you're working on a test or whatever and things are going fast. You don't have much time left. The way that I do it really limits your amount of error. What I do is I take the first thing and type it in. So I type 1.0 and then hit the multiply key. Then type whatever this is and then hit the divide key. And then type in whatever that is. Hit the multiply key, type in that, divide key that, multiply, so on and so forth. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So, I'm going to go, oops, okay, 1 times 5280 divide 1, well, that's 1 mile, times 12 divide 1 times 2.54 divide 1 times 1 divide 100. Hit enter, and it comes out to 1609. You can't really see that. 1609.344. Nope, 1609.344. Now, you may be saying, well, that's just a lot of ones. Why even bother with the ones? Well, if you get in the habit of doing it this way, then when your denominators become more complicated, like 0.562, then you don't really have to worry about it because you're already in the habit of punching it in and punching it in that way. And it goes really quickly, and you don't screw it up. And that's really important. So now let's think about significant figures. We have to think, we have to take into account, since this is multiplication, we have to go with what the limiting significant figures are. Since this was an exact measurement, we don't need to worry about it. This was exact, don't need to worry about it. This, exact, exact, they're all exact except for this. This one has 2 significant figures, so our answer has to be limited to 2 significant figures. So the first 2 digits here, our final answer is going to be 1600 meters. And one thing I didn't do, but you should always do, is double check that all of these guys cancel out, which they do.